When you are depressed, it feels like the universe is conspiring against you. And in a way, it actually is. Not because the stars have aligned against you, not because you did something to deserve it, but because your brain has quietly rewritten the rules of how you experience everything. Depression is not just sadness. It is a filter, a grey, heavy filter that sits over your entire life and makes every colour duller, every sound harsher, every small problem feel like the end of the world. And when everything looks broken, everything starts to break. That is not a coincidence. That is a loop, a psychological loop that feeds on itself, grows stronger in silence, and convinces you that you are the problem, but you are not the problem. And by the end of this, you will understand exactly why everything seems to fall apart when you are at your lowest, and more importantly, how to begin putting it back together. And here is what makes it so dangerous. Most people experiencing this do not even realize it is happening. They think the world genuinely got worse. They think their luck actually changed. They look around at the mess of their life and assume it has always been this bad, and they were just too naive to see it before. But that is the depression talking. That is the filter doing its job, and it is terrifyingly good at its job. But here is the question no one really asks. Why does your car break down the same week you lose your job? Why do your friends stop calling right when you need them most? Why does your coffee spill, your alarm fail, and your inbox overflow all at once? Is the universe punishing you? Or is something else happening? Something deep inside your own mind that is quietly pulling the strings behind every disaster? The answer is more fascinating and more freeing than you might expect. Let us find out. It starts with the way your brain pays attention. When you are not depressed, your mind works like a spotlight on a stage. It moves around freely, picking up good things, bad things, neutral things. You notice a compliment from a coworker. You enjoy a warm cup of coffee in the morning. You laugh at something your kid says at dinner. Your brain is scanning the full landscape of your day, taking in the whole picture. But when depression moves in, something fundamental changes. That spotlight narrows. It locks onto the negative and refuses to let go. It becomes a laser, burning a hole through every moment, searching for proof that things are terrible. Psychologists call this mental filtering. It is one of the most common thinking patterns in depression, and it is devastatingly effective at making your life look worse than it actually is. Imagine this. You had a genuinely good day. You finished a project at work. You had a nice lunch with a colleague. Someone held the door open for you at the grocery store. And then, right at the end of the day, you got a slightly critical email from your boss. Nothing major, just a small note about a deadline. But if you are depressed, that email becomes the only thing that happened today. The project you finished does not matter. The lunch does not register. The kind stranger at the grocery store might as well not exist. Your brain erases all of it and replays that one email over and over until it feels like the entire day was a complete disaster. That is not reality. That is your brain lying to you with absolute conviction. And it does it so smoothly, so naturally, that you do not even think to question it. And then comes catastrophizing. This is your brain's other favorite trick when depression is in control. Catastrophizing is when your mind takes a small, manageable problem and inflates it into something enormous and terrifying. You miss a phone call from a friend, and suddenly you are convinced they are furious with you and probably talking about you behind your back. You make a minor error at work, a typo in a report or a missed deadline, and now you are certain you are about to be fired. a neighbor does not wave back at you, and your brain whispers that nobody in the neighborhood likes you and they never have. Your partner sighs while doing the dishes, and you spiral into believing the entire relationship is falling apart. None of this is true. But depression does not care about truth. It cares about confirming what it already believes, that everything is falling apart, and it is all your fault. It builds a case against you using evidence that does not exist, and it does it so well that you become your own judge, jury, and executioner. So now you have a brain that only notices the bad and then makes the bad feel 10 times worse than it actually is. That alone would be enough to make life feel impossible. But depression does not stop there, not even close. It goes after your energy next. And this is where the real-world consequences start piling up. There is a term psychologists use called executive dysfunction. It sounds clinical and complicated, but the experience of it is painfully simple. It is the reason you cannot get off the couch even though you know you need to. It is the reason the dishes have been in the sink for 4 days. It is the reason you have 17 unread texts on your phone and a stack of bills on the counter you keep meaning to open but never do. Executive dysfunction is what happens when the part of your brain responsible for planning, organizing, prioritizing, and initiating action just shuts down. It is like trying to drive a car with no fuel. You know exactly where you need to go. You have the keys in your hand. You are sitting behind the wheel, but nothing happens when you turn the ignition. You sit there stuck, watching the world go by outside the window. And here is where depression becomes especially cruel, because when those small tasks pile up, they stop being small. The dishes in the sink become a kitchen you are ashamed to let anyone see. The unopened bills become late fees that eat into your budget. The unanswered texts become friendships that slowly go cold. And suddenly, you are not just dealing with the internal pain of depression anymore. You are dealing with real, tangible, measurable consequences that depression quietly created in the background while you were too exhausted to notice. Your car did not break down because you are cursed or because the universe has it out for you. It broke down because you missed the oil change 3 months ago, during a week when getting out of bed felt like climbing a mountain. Your friend did not stop calling because they secretly hate you. They stopped calling because you did not return their last 5 messages, and they assumed you wanted space. The chaos in your life is real. The problems are real. But they did not come from nowhere. They grew in the soil of exhaustion, neglect, and a brain that was too busy fighting itself to take care of the basics. Consider a composite example based on commonly observed patterns. Let us call him Leo. Leo is 29 years old. He works at a warehouse on the outskirts of town. He has been dealing with depression on and off since his 2nd year of college, but this particular wave hit harder than most about 2 months ago. One Monday morning, Leo sleeps through his alarm. Not because he is lazy, not because he does not care about his job, but because he was awake until 4 in the morning, lying in the dark, staring at the ceiling while his mind replayed every mistake he has ever made on an endless, merciless loop. He wakes up 40 minutes late. He panics. He skips breakfast, throws on whatever clothes are closest, and rushes to work. He clocks in late and gets written up by his supervisor. That write-up triggers a spiral. He spends the rest of the day at his workstation, hands moving on autopilot, while his mind is somewhere else entirely, convinced he is about to be fired. He cannot focus. He makes small mistakes. His supervisor notices those too. By Wednesday, Leo has stopped eating regular meals. He is surviving on energy drinks and vending machine snacks because cooking feels like an impossible task. His apartment is getting worse. Clothes on the floor, mail piling up on the counter, garbage that should have gone out days ago. A friend from college texts asking if he wants to grab dinner on Friday night. Leo stares at the message for 10 minutes. He starts typing a response twice and deletes it both times. Then he puts his phone face down on the table. He tells himself he will respond later, maybe tomorrow. He knows he will not. By Thursday evening, his check engine light comes on during the commute home. He has been noticing it flicker for weeks now, but kept telling himself he would deal with it next paycheck. He already knows the repair is going to cost money he does not have, because he forgot to pay his credit card bill last month, and the late fee carved a hole in his already tight budget. From the outside looking in, Leo is having the worst week of his life. Car trouble, work problems, social isolation, financial stress, all crashing down at once. But from the inside, none of these are separate random events. They are all branches growing from the same root. Depression did not reach into his car engine and break something. But depression made him unable to maintain the routines that would have prevented it. And that is the cruel trick. Depression creates the conditions for disaster and then convinces you that you deserve the wreckage. Now here is where it gets even more painful, because depression does not just change how you see the world. It changes how the world sees you. When you are depressed, your face changes. The muscles around your mouth relax. Your eyes lose their spark. Your voice flattens into a monotone. Your shoulders curve inward. Psychologists call this flat affect. It means your emotional expression stops showing up on the outside, even when your feelings are screaming on the inside. You might feel everything deeply, more deeply than you ever have. But to the people around you, you look blank, checked out, distant, uninterested in them. And people respond to what they can see, not to what is invisible. Think about how social interaction actually works. When someone smiles at you, something in your brain fires, and you smile back without even thinking about it. When someone asks about your day with real warmth in their voice, you naturally open up. Conversation flows. Connection happens. But when someone sits across from you at dinner with hollow eyes and a flat voice and one-word answers, what do you instinctively do? You pull back. You shorten the conversation. You fill the silence with nervous small talk, and then find a reason to leave early. It is not cruelty. It is not that they stopped caring about you. It is basic human wiring. It is instinct. We mirror the energy that is given to us. And when depression flattens your energy to almost nothing, the people around you start to match it without even realizing what they are doing. They call less often. They stop inviting you to things. They text less frequently, and when they do text, the messages are shorter. They do not check in the way they used to. Not because their love for you disappeared overnight, not because you did something unforgivable, but because your depression built an invisible wall between you and every person in your life, and nobody knows it is there. They cannot see it. You cannot name it. And nobody knows how to climb over something that nobody can identify. And then you notice the silence, the empty phone screen, the weekend with no plans, the group chat that moved on without you. And your depression leans in close and whispers, "See, I told you, nobody actually cares about you." But that is another lie, maybe the cruelest one of all. People do care. They just cannot reach you through the fog. And the worst part is, the isolation that depression creates then feeds the depression itself. Loneliness makes it harder to get out of bed, which makes it harder to respond to messages, which makes people drift further away, which makes the loneliness deeper. The loop tightens with every rotation, and every turn of the cycle makes the next one harder to break. So what do? How do you interrupt a cycle that feeds itself from every direction at once? You start impossibly small, and I mean genuinely, absurdly, almost laughably small. There is a concept in clinical psychology called behavioral activation, and the idea behind it is almost insultingly simple. When you are depressed, you stop doing things. When you stop doing things, your brain stops producing the reward chemicals that make activities feel worthwhile. So you feel worse. So you do even less. So your brain produces even fewer of those chemicals. And the spiral continues downward. Behavioral activation says, break the cycle by doing one tiny thing. Not because you feel motivated. You will not feel motivated. That is the whole point. The motivation is not going to arrive before you act. You act first, and the motivation follows. It might be making your bed, just pulling the sheets up and straightening the pillow. It might be washing one single dish out of the pile. It might be stepping outside your front door for 60 seconds and just feeling the air on your skin. It might be sending one text to someone you have been avoiding. Just 3 words. Hey, thinking of you. These things sound ridiculous when you are deep in the pit. I understand that completely. When your brain is telling you that nothing matters and nothing will ever get better, the idea of making your bed as a therapeutic intervention feels like a joke. But the evidence says otherwise. These small actions work. Not because they fix everything overnight. They do not. But because they interrupt the pattern. They prove something to your brain that depression has been trying to deny. They prove that you can still act, that you are not completely powerless, that the loop has a crack in it, and you just put it there. And once you get one small win, something subtle shifts inside. Your brain registers the completion. It goes, that was not as impossible as I thought. Maybe I can handle one more thing, so you do one more thing. And then maybe another after that. You take a shower. You open one of those bills. You take the garbage out. None of these things solve your depression. Let me be absolutely clear about that. But they do something almost more important in the moment. They break the narrative. The story your brain has been telling you, that you are useless, that you cannot do anything, that you are fundamentally incapable of functioning, suddenly has a crack in it, and that crack matters more than you know. Because once a story has a crack, it can never be as convincing again. And slowly, so slowly, you almost cannot see it happening. Grain by grain, you start to rebuild the ground beneath your feet that depression washed away. You are not climbing a mountain. You never were. You are just picking up one stone at a time and putting it back where it belongs. There is another idea that matters deeply here, and it is called locus of control. When you are depressed, your sense of control shifts outward. Everything feels like it is happening to you. The world is attacking you. Life is fundamentally unfair. You are not a driver anymore. You are a passenger being dragged through one bad event after another with no say in the matter. But healing, real healing, begins when that sense of control starts to shift back inward. Not in a way that blames you for being sick. Not ever. Never that. But in a way that quietly reminds you that you still have a hand on the steering wheel, even if you forgot it was there. It is the difference between saying everything is falling apart and saying things are really hard right now, and I am going to do one small thing today to make tomorrow slightly easier. That shift in language feels tiny, almost meaningless, like rearranging words on a page. but it changes the entire direction of your internal compass. Because depression is a master liar, and one of its biggest, most effective lies is that you have no power, no agency, no control over any of it. It wants you passive. It wants you still. It wants you to believe that resistance is pointless. But you do have power. That power might be buried under weeks of exhaustion and brain fog and unwashed dishes and missed calls and mounting guilt. But it is still there, waiting for you to reach for it. And every single small choice you make, no matter how insignificant it seems, is evidence that the lie is wrong. Now I want to say something directly to you. If you are listening to this and you feel like you are that person, the one whose world seems to be crumbling, whose friends have gone quiet, whose every single day feels like wading through wet cement, I want you to hear this clearly. The things going wrong in your life right now are not proof that you are broken. They are not evidence that you are a failure. They are symptoms. Symptoms of a condition that distorts absolutely everything it touches. Depression does not just make you feel sad. It rewires the way you see, the way you think, the way you move through the world, and the way the world moves around you. When the lens you are looking through is cracked, everything on the other side is going to look shattered. But the world is not shattered. The lens is, and lenses can be cleaned. Loops can be broken. Patterns, even deeply painful ones that have been running for months or years, can be changed. Not overnight, not with positive thinking or willpower alone, but with the slow, quiet, almost invisible courage of just showing up for yourself one more time. The fact that you are here right now, that you clicked on this, that you have listened this far, means that some part of you, even a small, exhausted, barely hanging on part, is still reaching for something better. And I need you to know that part of you is not weak. That part of you is the strongest thing in the room. The world is not out to get you. Your brain is stuck in a pattern that makes it look that way. And patterns, no matter how deep or how old they are, can be interrupted, one tiny action at a time. One dish, one text, one breath of fresh air, one moment of choosing yourself when everything inside you says not to bother. That is the crack in the wall. And light, stubborn and patient and warm, always finds its way in through the cracks. It always has. It always will. Depression wants you to believe the darkness is permanent, that the chaos is your destiny, that the wreckage scattered across your life is just who you are now and who you will always be. But that is the last and greatest lie it tells. You are not the wreckage. You are not the missed calls or the late bills or the empty weekends. You are the person standing in the middle of all of it, still breathing, still here, still quietly capable of picking up one piece at a time and putting your world back together. If this helped you see things even a little differently today, share it with someone who might need to hear it too. Subscribe if you want more conversations like this one, because there is so much more to explore together. And leave a comment below. Tell me what your one small thing is going to be today. I read every single one of them, and I would love to hear from you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next one.